let's see what we have to. Okay, arrange. Pretty much standard operations. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's over there, and that's over there, and oh, hi. Hi, come in. Hi, it's nice to meet you. No, I was just taking stock of inventory and just kind of making sure everything is in the right place and organized as best as possible and as correctly as possible. So anyway, tell me, how may I help you? And please do tell me what you're looking for so I can assist you even more correctly. My name's Rudy, by the way. Yeah, Librarian Rudy. As you can tell, there's no one else here. So you're looking for books, okay? Books for research, for reading, just for fun. Okay. You've got a lot of work to do at the. Fair enough. Yeah, we don't always want to keep doing research, so I totally understand that. Okay, let me think about it. Is there a genre that you're kind of looking for? You know, something specific? You know. What's that? Sci-fi. Well, of course, we have lots of sci-fi with us, and you've come to the right person. I love sci-fi myself, and I can surely recommend something that you can probably find an interest in. We can work our way up from basic beginner type books to something a little more robust, a little more complicated. Okay. Now these might be controversial or hot takes, but when I say beginner type books, I don't necessarily mean they're meant for beginners. They're more like things that are trending, or just sort of things that people can get into immediately because it's sort of just like very known at the moment. So pardon me if we'll do both. We'll do a beginner in terms of literally beginners to sci-fi, and then we'll do beginners in terms of like what is trending, so it's easy to just get into, and then something that's a bit more not so known and a little bit more niche, so to speak. Okay, we'll do the first one, which is just beginner, literally beginner. So I would say you could start with something like do you know The Giver? Lois Lowry, The Giver, the THEGIVER, THE space GIVER, sorry, ER, The Giver, like the giver, someone who gives. And so it's a pretty good book, and it's not traditionally sci-fi in the way that you would assume it would have, like spaceships or something like that, or it's set in outer space. It's not. It's very much set in a planet, on a planet, Earth itself, but it's sort of a different kind of world. You can take it like I don't really, without spoiling anything, I think just imagine it's kind of like a different society altogether, and they have a different kind of way of being and all of that, and certain things are like the norm in the society and all of that. So yeah, I would say that's a good starting point. It's a sort of easier book to read, The Giver, and it's pretty nice. It's not overly complicated, and it has sort of sequels as well, but they're not direct sequels, but they're not kind of like, they are set in that universe, that world, the general world, but they're not meant to be like direct sequels like Harry Potter or something like that. So I would suggest The Giver. It's kind of anthological, the 4 books. So it's The Giver, The Giver, Gathering Blue, Messenger, and Sun. Now you could read all 4 of them, and I'm pretty sure they're all good together. But The Giver is just sort of standard, everyone reads it. It's a pretty good book, so I would highly recommend it. Up next, I think I would recommend something like this might be controversial as well, um, given that it could be hard to read. So in some ways, something like 2001: A Space Odyssey or A Childhood's End, both of which are Arthur C. Clarke books. They're sort of the popular ones that everybody knows. A Childhood's End is a very popular book, pretty good book as well. It's available in audiobook, and I think you could give it a read. It's pretty cool. It's sort of a tale on how I think aliens. So typically you would imagine an alien invasion to be very violent and very sort of intrusive. Like they come in and they're just very immediately present. They're very loud and like explosive, very bombastic. But this is a very different kind of book. The alien invasion, so to speak, is not as explosive nor that bombastic. It's more subtle. It's more it's more parasitic in some ways. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but it's just sort of very infiltrative. Like they come in and they sort of subtly take over humanity. It's not like, it's very hard to frame my sentences in a way that helps steer clear of spoilers. So, but all that I can say is go read it. It's pretty good. And since it's very popular, it's just sort of one of those books that everyone reads. So it's kind of like you'll always have a lot of information to rely on in terms of not getting lost. So I can recommend that. And 2001: A Space Odyssey is also pretty up there in terms of I wouldn't call it beginner in any way. It's not really a beginner type book, but it's just sort of, yeah, like you can get into it. And then I suppose I think these are okay, since they're sort of popular titles, and they're relatively easy to get into for beginners, in my opinion. But if you're looking for something a bit more robust, I can work with sort of explaining what that could look like in terms of actual scaling from beginner to advanced. Now, in no way am I saying that this ranking is correct. It's just more so what I think is beginner. But you should have already been into sci-fi to consider these beginner types. And again, this is in terms of beginners versus advanced, in terms of how popular these are, how well known these books are, and so as a result how easy it is to get into them, whilst also saying that you already should have been into sci-fi. So if you already are, which I think you are, I would very much recommend you start with Dune. Now that's strange to say because this is not an easy book to read. It's very, some would call it convoluted, some would call it a hectic book to follow. But because it's just sort of trending and it's sort of a movie at the moment, right? It's, I think, okay to keep up with. Like you can always read it and go back to the movie if you get lost. Same with 2001: A Space Odyssey. The movie and the book came out around the same time, and I think the book came out a little after the movie. Like, yeah, the script writing and the full book were being written around kind of the same time. That's Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke behind the wheel. So it's kind of like you can watch the movie or read the book, or read the book then watch the movie, and it would be fine. So same with this. I would heavily recommend the reverse for Dune, but if you do the rewatching movie and coming back to this, it shouldn't be bad either, because you're kind of using an imagination that already exists, and then this fills the gaps and expands it. But if you read this, you sort of are able to be like, oh, that's what happened in the books. It's up to you though. Both work. Second, again, keep in mind I'm telling you all of these books in terms of like what you can read in terms of trending books, and obviously Dune is extremely trending at the moment, because everyone's reading it, everyone's watching the movie, everyone's having their Dune Timothée Chalamet moment. So yeah, so Dune I would recommend immediately for anybody trying to get into sci-fi. After that, I would say you could come back to another Arthur C. Clarke title, but this one is a little bit more. I wouldn't say difficult to read, but it's definitely a sort of giant book in terms of not length, but sort of the stuff that happens in it. Like, yeah. So this is Rendezvous with Rama, which is also going to turn into a movie with Denis Villeneuve directing it. Pretty good book. I would heavily recommend it to someone who enjoys giga project type scale, right? In terms of like large spacecrafts, right? And if you're looking to get into stuff like that, solid book. This basically involves a space a group of astronauts going into space to sort of intercept a large sort of object, a UFO, right? A space kind of ship that has entered the solar system, and they're going to intercept it. And what it is a literal massive, like, I don't know, 50 kilometers long or something like that. So it's a huge ship. It's ridiculously large, you know. So they kind of intercepted, and that's the whole plot. Now, I don't want to say anything more than that. This does have sequels, but they're not necessarily meant to be sequels in terms of like having been written by Arthur. They are written by another person, but I've heard that they're nice. They sort of take it or leave it. Like with Frank Herbert's Dune, there's like sequels that his son did that some people don't like and some people love. So it's just sort of a take it or leave it kind of situation. So it's up to you to read the next few parts if you choose to, you know. But I can endorse this one for sure. Up next is another Arthur C. Clarke title. I don't know if you've realized, but I think I'm a little obsessed with Arthur C. Clarke. He's probably my favorite author in terms of sci-fi. It makes sense because he's called Arthur. So I think he's a Sir. He's Sir Arthur C. Clarke, and I think he's been credited with something to do with the kind of birth of the satellite in some way, I believe. You know, he's known for kind of crafting and talking about futuristic technology in his books. And when we come to the real world and then we look at the technology that exists, we can see that in his books as well. And it's cool to kind of see it being called out in advance and see it exist the way it does few years prior in his books, which is very cool. Now, this is one of my most favorite books. It's a classic in terms of Arthur C. Clarke. It's also one of his lesser known books, very underrated, but I can heavily endorse this trilogy. And the book is called, the trilogy of the books are called A Time Odyssey, and book one is Time's Eye. Splendid read, really, really interesting. I would have actually suggested this as a beginner read, but only this being such an underrated book, I thought it would be sort of an advanced read, even though I read it when I was in a much younger grade, around when I was 14 or 15 myself. I read it back then, but it's just I think it's a more it's a more enjoyable read when you sort of get into sci-fi and then come back to this, you know. But you could do the other way around. You could start with this, then go to Dune. It's up to you, really. It's just when I say beginner, you know, I'm kind of asking you to take it with a grain of salt, you know. But this one, splendid book. I will not explain anything regarding this book because that would literally spoil everything about the book then. So all I can say is go read it, and I hope you enjoy it. If you have already read it, let me know, you know. But yeah, no, that would be my next pick. And last one is a book that I myself haven't read yet, but I'm coming to it pretty soon. And it is a very well-known book in terms of being one of the a classic, I would say. You know, in terms of classics, we have quite a lot of books that are staples in sci-fi. We have Isaac Asimov's Foundation. We have Dune by Frank Herbert, the entire series as well. I mean, the set of Dune books, the six sets book of Dune, all of it. We have obviously Cixin Liu's which is Three Body Problem. Anything by Arthur C. Clarke is a classic, especially 2001: A Space Odyssey. I would consider Time Odyssey a classic, in my opinion. Rendezvous with Rama is definitely a classic, and this book is also a very big classic in terms of being spectacular and pretty sci-fi-y, and it's a very well-known book in the sci-fi community, but quite unknown to those just entering it. So I would heavily recommend this book by Dan Simmons, Hyperion. Now, Hyperion, I believe, is a book that is part of 4 books in total. Yeah, this is book 1, Hyperion. It's a pretty good book, and if you'd like, I can read out the blurb for you, just so kind of. And the reason I'm keeping this for last is because, one, it's extremely underrated, quite underknown as well. Both Cixin Liu's Three Body Problem and this are books that I believe need more attention. Even though Three Body Problem just got adapted by Netflix, I still feel like it's severely underknown and underrated. So I would recommend that as well. But this one as well is a really good read, and I would recommend it because it's been recommended to me as well by a lot of people. So here we go. This is Hyperion, and this is the blurb. The universe of the human hegemony is under threat. Invasion by the warlike ousters looms, and the mysterious schemes of the secessionist AI technocore bring chaos ever closer. So it looks like it's a fight between ousters and a AI group called Technocore, or the AI Technocore. On the eve of disaster, 7 pilgrims set out on a quest for the legendary Time Tombs on Hyperion, home to the Shrike, part god and part killing machine with powers that transcend the limits of time and space. The pilgrims have resolved to discover nothing less than the secrets of the universe itself. Pretty cool, in my opinion. The concept of the Shrike is very awesome, and I'm very intrigued by it, and I hope to explore it soon in my own read, in my own time when I come to reading this book. But until then, I hope you will consider reading some of these books yourself, my friend. And if you like it, let me know. And in your next stop to the library, maybe you can come bring me a few books and suggestions of your own, and maybe we can sit down and have a chat. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that was useful information, and if it was, please let me know. And until then, I'm going to go ahead and arrange the books. The library is in a bit of a clutter, so we need to declutter it, organize it, and do what we must. And yeah, until then, just sit back, grab a cup of coffee, tea, milk, water, whatever you'd like, juice, a blanket, or whatever that you prefer in terms of comfort, and cozy up with a nice book and just begin to read and get lost in the world of sci-fi, or whatever genre that you prefer, Anyway, take care, my friends, enjoy, and happy reading. Take care. Bye-bye. See you. Good night. Take care. Have a wonderful sci-fi-esque sleep and tingly relaxation, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.